Okay. Hello, and welcome back to the Listening to Your Gut podcast. We've got a recurring friend that is back here again, one of my besties, Meghan Hurley Powell. Dr. Meghan Hurley Powell, welcome back to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I am so excited to be here.
Yay, I'm pumped too because you have taught me so much. I just feel like that's one of the best qualities of having friends who we have a connection the way that we do, and like you teach me things, hopefully I teach you maybe something, I don't know.
You do. Stop.
But I just you have helped me to slow down, and that's really kind of where I want this podcast to go today, is really
Mhm,
talking about, like I shared with you before we hopped on the mic, is like talking about this hustle culture that I feel like started during the pandemic for a lot of us, and we've
mhm,
all kind of gotten to that point where we've fizzled out of that and like
mhm,
can't do that anymore. And so you have been such a like role model in a sense for me to watch you take a step back from that and really assess your situation and what is most important to you. And you, like I said, you've stepped away from hustle culture. And that's what I'm working on doing too. So that's where we're headed with this podcast episode. If you haven't caught on, everyone. So Meghan, I want you to really like define for the listeners, what is hustle culture
Yeah.
in your own words.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. So, hustle culture is actually something that really originated, like that term, based on the research I've done, originates actually in the workplace.
Yeah.
So, hustle culture, in the most traditional sense, is something that corporations sort of use to get the most out of their employees, right? And so it's this idea of the harder I work, the more I grind, the more I push myself beyond my limits, beyond the normal 9 to 5 work hours or whatever the work hours are, the more success I will have. It
Mhm.
equates, overextending immense amounts of work with success,
Yeah.
right? And so you get into this like mindset of like, well, I have to go, go, go. I have to push, push, push. The more I can squeeze into my day, the more tasks I can accomplish,
Yeah.
the more successful I'm going to be, the more worthy I'm going to be,
Yeah.
type of thing. Right. And so it's getting into sort of like that mindset. And so, yes, hustle culture originates in the workplace because that's what's associated with raises and promotions and, clout in the workplace. Right. But that also extends into other aspects of our world and our life, right? So it affects women like you and me who are not in corporate, right? We're in education, and it sort of manifests then in our goals, right? Well, if I can record 3 podcasts in one day, then I'm going to be successful. And I also, by the way, have to make sure my house is clean. I got to work out for 2 hours. I got to meal prep. And you're laughing because right? I got to create all those Canva graphics. I got to write the social media, but like it's so freaking much
Yeah.
that it's just so much. And it's that
Yeah.
day in, day out, compounding over time. And you just end up becoming a burnt out, crispy freaking shell. And you are anxious and you're overwhelmed and you don't ever feel like you're enough. You feel like you're a big fat failure.
Yeah.
And that to me is what hustle culture is. It's all of this like negative energy, and it's cloaked and masked in this like idea of quote unquote success, but
Yeah.
really it sets you up for failure in so many different ways.
I love that. You have said this on your podcast before too, but I love the visual. I love, this is gonna sound weird. I love the visual of a burnt crispy shell, because
Yeah.
that is in truth, like that's how you feel. You feel like you're just
Yeah.
nothing left,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like you're frail, you're empty, you're hollowed out. There's nothing left to give.
Yes.
So I
Yep.
appreciate you sharing that. And like you said, yeah, it's all encompassing. It's throughout the entire day. It's every part
Mhm.
of your life is affected by it. And whether you're someone who works from home or not, or someone who has a full-time job and the side hustles or not, like it affects us all,
Mhm.
especially I feel like those type A personalities,
Yeah.
they're always like, truthfully, go, 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 do, do, do.
Yeah.
Um,
And the
yeah,
yeah, and the thing with hustle culture too is that you know better. Like, we are smart women, right? We are intelligent women, and we know better, where you're like, we know rest is productive. We know that we need to take a break, but
yep,
you get into that toxic mindset of like, but no, just one more.
yep,
Right? Just one more. I just need to push just a little bit more, because that's how it grabs you. That's how hustle culture grabs you, is you know better, but you don't do better,
mhm,
right? Because we are so practiced in that go, go, go mentality, right? So you're going to feel the burnout. You're going to feel the crispy shell. You are just crackling away, and you're like, oh, I am so stick a fork in me, done. But you
yeah.
won't allow yourself to stop. And it's so detrimental to our mental, physical, emotional, all the health.
Yeah, and I think we could go down many different paths with that. I mean, I have a thought in my mind, maybe we'll
Mhm,
circle back around to it, but I would love for you to share. I know the answer to this question because I love you and
mhm,
you're one of my bestest friends and I've seen your journey, but for those who are listening and watching that don't know your story,
mhm.
when did you get to that point of like I'm done. I'm done being a crispy shell. Like, when
Yeah.
did that resistance start for you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, such a great question. So it actually happened around October, like 2022. So we went to Keisha Get Mary's Empower Her Live event, right, in October of 2022. And, I was there. I was there to speak and like all the things, and just to meet people, and just to squeeze people like you, who are my, best friends. And it was just so much fun. And it was after I got back from that, and I was like, I need to slow down. I am feeling this desire to slow down, to just, kind of be a person, and to learn how to embrace rest, because I was feeling unmotivated with things that I was passionate about, right? So back then I was very, very passionate about growing my publishing business. And whenever it came to like working on it, to like edit manuscripts or create content to advertise for the business, I was just like, I just don't want to do this.
Mhm,
Right. And
mhm,
that was the first time that it really clicked for me. It was like, oh my God, I don't want to work. I have no motivation to work on the things that previously brought me joy.
yep,
And I was like, that is not okay. That is not okay, right? And it was just this idea of like, I just don't have, like you said, I don't have anything left to give. Right?
yeah,
Like, I am just such an empty shell. I am anxious all the time, and I just don't want to feel this way anymore. And
yeah,
it was actually the perfect time to finally feel those feelings, because I was about to be in a huge transitional phase of my life, right? Where I was transitioning from being a professor in Iowa to being a high school teacher in Arkansas. And
yeah,
so that was the perfect time to really drop, honestly, everything.
yep,
Um, that I was working on at the time, and just focus on, the move and the new job and just the podcast, right? I like to say that I'm a natural born storyteller. That's why I'm on this earth, right? One of the reasons I'm on this earth. And so I was like, I'm going to still continue to podcast and still continue to do those things, but I'm going to pull back from everything, put the business on pause, put my own writing on pause. I'm going to post on social media when I want to, when I have something to say. I'm going to create podcast episodes that are going to be shorter and imperfect, and it just sort of like is what it is, you
mm,
know. And now I feel like I'm getting off into the weeds, but yeah, I mean, so like the life transition came at a perfect time, which sort of gave me the time and the space to pull back, because I literally couldn't handle a move and a new job and a new teaching context. Because if you're a teacher, that, it takes a minute to adjust to a new teaching context, a new set of kids, right?
yeah,
And so it just was the perfect time for me to drop everything that I had previously told myself, like all the balls I was juggling were made of glass,
yeah.
really truly weren't made of glass after all.
Yeah, I love that, and I wonder if you feel this same way because I would imagine that this is something that probably forces many of us to step back from hustle culture, but
Mhm.
I feel like I'm starting to feel that exact same way of how you just
Mhm.
described of like I can't do it anymore. It's just
Yeah.
it's like there's no passion, it's not lighting me up. But I think for me, it took a major life transition, like
Mhm.
you said, which
Yep.
for me is going out of the general ed and into this new position of teaching ESL, and
Mhm.
also just from being so dang burnt out in the general ed classroom,
Yep.
which you also feel as well, like from the professor standpoint. So, like,
Yep.
do you feel like that was like the turning point for you as well? Was like what you said, like I can't do all of this and my job too.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I I don't know, and obviously like I'm not going to know, right? Because
Yeah.
life takes you down different paths and everything, but it was also at the time too in December of 2022 my then business partner was like, "Hey, I love you, but I want to start my own company." And so I lost my business partner and she was doing, we were doing everything 50-50. It was, that's how the business kept running. If it wasn't for her,
Yeah.
I probably would have just collapsed, had like a total breakdown. But her stepping back and me having that life transition to a different state, different job, I had to. There was literally no other bandwidth left for me to continue to do all the other things, and I needed to put it on pause. It was such a stark pivot to go from higher ed to, secondary ed, right? Like into the classroom. Like,
Yeah.
as a professor, I had a class Tuesday, like, well, I taught all 5 days a week, but like just for example, Tuesday, Thursdays, it was like, oh, I only have one class in the morning. It's from 9:30 to 10:45. I'm home by 11:15. Like, woo, like, yes. And then what I would do is I would use the rest of that day to like go for a walk. And then I would just work on business stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, there was no time off. Like, I would be like, I have to work in these times that I have off, right? So going from that kind of a schedule
Yeah.
to 5 days a week, I have to be at this physical location from 7:45 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon, and there are no breaks. I'm there the whole day,
Yeah.
right? That was a stark change, and
Yeah.
it took a lot of energy, which sounds like a weird thing, but it took a lot of energy to transition to that new way of being, that new schedule, that new routine, and there just literally wasn't enough of me to go around left. So the new circumstances I was in really forced me to take that step back.
Yeah. I I think a lot of us, if like I said earlier, if you're not in it right now, maybe you're about to go through it. I think a lot of us probably can resonate with that, that is the turning point, so to speak.
Mhm.
You know, it's my life, it's my health, or
Mhm.
burying myself, digging myself a hole because I'm just like putting myself into an early
Mhm.
grave, so to speak.
Yeah.
You just can't do it all. And it's, you talk about the social media aspect. I mean, building a business,
Mhm.
that's huge. That is a full-time job in and of itself.
It
And then
is.
you've got your like big full-time job, where
Mhm.
you're going and teaching. It's like that's carrying on two full-time jobs for one person. And
Mhm.
it's, I don't want to say it's
And
impossible
yeah.
because people, work things out, but you're not going to be able to sustain that, which is what
Yeah.
we all come to realize, at some point or another.
Absolutely. Well, and for me too, especially, like, I really had to take that step back because of the way that I post on social media. I don't know how many people know this about me, but I post on social media like from the moment in the moment.
Yeah.
Like, I will write my captions from the emotions in the moment, either like literally right in it or
Mhm.
right after it. I'm not like a batch content kind of person, like, oh, I need to make a reel about this and that. Like, I can't connect to it. I have to be full heart,
Yeah.
double feet in the water. Like, I have to be in it. And that's a wonderful way to create content. It's so authentic, it's so genuine. And like, no shade to anybody who doesn't, post
Right.
that way, right? But that's how I do it. And
Yeah.
it's so rewarding and it's so genuine, but it's also a lot.
Yeah.
And I just did not have that kind of capacity trying to learn a new context and try to do that at the same time.
Sure.
So all posts from that season were still the same way of like in the moment, like this is my lived experience, these are my true emotions coming out.
Yep.
Um, but there wasn't any sort of like posting schedule. There was no pillars paid attention to. If you know, you know. Like
Yeah.
it was just literally posting my genuine raw human experience. And so giving myself that permission to do that was also huge. Like I love going back looking at some of those posts and I was like, "Ah, I'm so proud of that former version because, this is all part of that detoxing from hustle culture experience, you know?"
Well, and shout out to you because I that is one of the coolest things about your page on Instagram, just so to show your social media presence in general is that you like I learn so much from what you process in real time when you know, put it out there
Mhm.
on social media. And I think there's not enough people out there that do that, that post in
Mhm.
the moment and share, you know, thought-provoking questions and ideas like you do. And
Mhm.
so just props to you because I am in awe always of what you share. And I'm like, look at her swimming in the lake or what have you. And like in real
Yeah.
like thinking about how that translates to like your lived experiences and things that you're going through. Like I remember you
Mhm.
posted about like one day the water was really turbulent, right? And like
Yeah.
that makes, you know, like sometimes life is harder, whereas sometimes, you know, the water is just calm and it's easier to
Mhm.
swim. Like, and the way you pulled that together to show like how that's how life is too.
Mhm.
It's beautiful. It's like
Oh, thank you.
like little snippets of a book, subtle hint, subtle nudge. It's like little
Yes.
snippets of a book that, you know, you
Yeah.
get in social media, bite-sized snippets, which I love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And I know maybe someone listening in is like, "Oh, but like what about being present where your feet are?" And you still can be.
yeah,
That's the thing is that it's not like, I'm not doing like an extended like let's vlog this whole
yeah,
experience. And again, no shade to that. But
yeah,
it's like I literally had that thought in my head and I was like, this is a cool thought. I want to preserve this thought, if
yeah,
not for someone, that is going to see it, but for
for you.
myself,
Yeah,
for
yep,
myself. And I know that other people can benefit from it. And so I took that video and it literally took, not even more than a minute of my time. And then I threw my phone back onto the dock and I was like, and we're going to go again, let's
yeah,
go. Right. Like, and so I don't know, like that just kind of like was a whole big tangent, but it doesn't sacrifice being present where your feet are when it's just like 2 seconds to preserve a really good thought or idea, you
sure,
know?
sure. Well, so let's keep this moving forward because I want you to share now.
Yeah.
What were some of your first steps in removing yourself from this hustle culture? Like what could you potentially share with other women to say, "Hey, you know, you don't necessarily have to take my steps, but here's what I did." You know, you might try something similar.
Yeah. Okay. I love this. So again, the live circumstances was
Yeah.
great because it prevented me from, like continuing to hustle in a lot of ways, right?
Mhm.
But honestly, truly, so around that time, so this would be like January 2023 through till like May 2023.
Mhm.
So in that time, I just gave myself permission to be. That was number one. Just give yourself permission to be. So I would get up in the morning, I'd get ready for school, I'd go to school, I'd go throughout the day, all those things, right? And then I would get home from school at like 3:45 in the afternoon or whatever, right? And I would sometimes go for a walk with my husband like after school like around the neighborhood, right? And then I would get home and I would put on pajamas and I would just kind of sit down on the couch and I would watch HGTV, or we really got into Big Bang Theory at
Uh-huh.
the time, and I would just watch like episodes of that. And
Mhm.
then I would allow myself to like read and just to be.
Mhm.
There was a lot of just allowing myself to be.
Mhm.
And sometimes that did involve, some deep social media scrolls,
Yeah.
or just this idea of like even like watching my husband play video games or just like laying in bed. Like I
Mhm.
can't express enough how fried your nervous system is
Mhm.
from the hustle that you need the time and the space to be. And let me tell you, it is so damn uncomfortable. Like the anxiety that came out of the woodwork for allowing myself to just be was, oh, was so real. Like I'd be like watching, Sheldon insult Penny and like thinking it's funny and laughing about it. And then being like, like shoulders creep up to the ears and like just feeling that buzz of anxiety. I don't know how anxiety feels to other people, but for me it's very much so like a buzzing and a tightening and you're just like this humming too high. I don't know how to explain it. And I would just be like, "Oh my god, I should be doing something. Like this is a waste of time. Like what are you doing?" And you just have to sit in the shit. Like you do. Like that was my motto around that time is I would let myself be. I'd be watching Big Bang Theory and that a huge wave, like a tsunami of you should be doing something. You should be going. Like that negative soundtrack in the back of my head would be going and I'd be like, "Nope, you got to just ride this out. You have got to ride this out because you are teaching yourself how to be." Like that was the detox portion
Yeah.
of my journey, right? Is just learning to sit in the shit and just being like, "You know what, anxiety, you're just going to sit next to me here on this couch. Like right now you're clobbering me, you're suffocating me, you're like on top of me." But
Yeah.
eventually just doing that day in and day out, it was where I would like let the anxiety just sit next to me. It went from a suffocating hug to sitting next to me on the couch and just like like we're just gonna be, right? So that's number one. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that or if you want me to keep going.
No, I love that. Yeah, keep sharing.
Okay, okay. So allowing myself to be and to sit in the shit because it's not glamorous and it's not glorious. And that's one thing. This could be like a soapboxy tangent here. But I think one of the things that like just is irritating about our society is that if it's not like a quick snap your fingers fix, people are gonna be like, "Oh, it doesn't work." I
Mhm.
cannot tell you. It was 3 months of
Yeah,
sitting in the shit.
yeah,
3 months of sitting in the shit and trying to just exist with the anxiety, breathe with the anxiety of not doing something
yeah.
that eventually I got to a point where it was one night I was sitting on the couch, I was wrapped in blankets. I'm a huge um like light person where it's like I have like I like the room to be dim and then I have it's the room will be accented with light. So I have like a string of lights that are around the living room and in our bedroom and stuff. And then I had one lamp on and I was cozied up in a blanket, sitting on the couch reading a book. And that was the first time I consciously felt I was like, where's the hum of anxiety? My shoulders are like
Yeah.
I am so at peace right now. This
Mhm.
is so freaking cool. Like I was so excited. And that came months
Yeah.
after sitting in the shit and just making myself continue to do it, to breathe through it, to be like, "You're gonna be okay." Like, so that was like another motto. So it was sit in the shit. And it was also like, this too shall pass. Like this too shall pass. Like it's gonna be okay. And it was months and months of that. So, and I've completely lost my train of thought, but it's just this idea that it's like if you snap your fingers and it doesn't work or you try this one time and it doesn't work,
Yeah.
like don't quit. Don't
Yeah.
quit. Part of that detoxing from hustle culture is allowing yourself to be and sitting in the shit and just training yourself to be okay with that stillness and with that being. So that was a huge part of it for me.
I love that. I love it. And this also goes without saying too, and I know that this is something we both share in common, like bringing into the mix, if it is something that you feel is beneficial, is like also going down if anxiety is
Mhm.
super like life altering for you to the point where
Yes.
you feel like you can't get through the day, like talking to your doctor about that, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
seeing, like what you can do about that. Talk therapy, which I know you and I both do. Like those
Mhm.
things are also on the table too. If you
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that don't go through the 3 months like you did, because yes, it is a long game, but
Mhm.
if you also feel like you need the support of something else, know that that is also, an option for
Mhm.
you to look at.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I love that you brought that up because that's where I was going to go next.
Yeah.
Right. So, March then. And so I felt good about the work I had done myself, but I was just like, I still feel Like, I know it was just the weirdest experience where, like, I objectively knew I was doing what was good for me, like, I knew that, right? Again, I am a smart person, and I was
Mhm.
like, "I know that this is good for me, but I still feel like a failure. I still feel XYZ, right? Like, I'm not enough, that I'm, like, not worthy enough. I've done these great things, I know I'm great, I'm good at what I do, but I still feel like a piece of shit, honestly, right?" And that is when I was like, I'm going to entertain therapy for the very first time, right? And my husband had gone first, right? He was going through his own set of like stuff, right? And he went first and he was like, this is really good. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna copy you. I'm gonna go find my own, right? And so
Yeah.
I started therapy and she was not the right person for me, right? She just was not the right person for me. And I broke up with her, found a different one, and I have been with her ever since, right? We celebrated our first anniversary, whole year of going to therapy in June. And I have learned so much from her. And so one of the other things, so the therapy part has been also very crucial, right? And it ties into another thing I've allowed myself to do to detox from hustle culture, which is this idea of defining enough. And so I really struggled to do that on my own, right? And that's like the beauty of therapy. I think I had a friend who's a therapist who said this one time to me, where she's like, the areas of your life that you get snagged on again and again and again, like those are the things that you bring to therapy,
Mhm.
right? And so one of the things that I was getting snagged on was, I'm like, nothing I ever do is enough, right? Like, I didn't know where that enough point was. And I had read about this idea of finding and defining your enough point in Jenna Kutcher's book, How Are You Really?
Yep.
There was this part way later in the book where she talks about one of her, because she did the whole burned out crispy shell journey too,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so she was like, one of the things I did was try to define my enough point. And I remember at the time reading that book way back in January of 2023, I was like, oh, like, Jenna, I don't get it. Like, I was so mad. I was like, I don't get it. Like, how do you just simply define enough? Because even for me, when you talk about like, doing like a bite-sized goal, like
Yeah.
I'm still 10 steps too much,
Mhm.
And so really like what I will never forget this. So I started seeing the new therapist in like June of 2023. So I'd started going in March and then I didn't like the first one. And so fired her, moved on. And then the first next available person was in June. So I started seeing her in June.
Mhm.
And I will never forget this. And even within like the first session, because if you've been to therapy, you fill out that like questionnaire thing or whatever. And then they kind of like, you just like chat and they're like, here's what I see in your thing or whatever. Right. And I'll never forget this. She looked at me and she's like, I think it would be so great for you if you could just stop white knuckling your life. And I was like, "Oh, that is it right there. That is it." Right? And so ever since then, I have been on that journey
Mhm.
to stop white knuckling my life, right? And that and a lot and a great portion of doing that has been in trying to define enough,
Mhm.
right? Enough at work, enough in my personal life, enough just like enough everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Because I used to be like and therapy has helped me to be able to define enough. So like another thing I love in therapy is like I would describe something, I'd be like, yeah, and then I had to do this and that, and then my brain is over here and my brain is over there. And she's like, oh my good God. She's like, but isn't that exhausting?
Yeah.
And I would just sit there and I'd be like, "God damn it." Like, yeah, it is
So right.
exhausting. It is exhausting. And so it was this process of like, and again, it's a process of trial and error and
Yeah.
failure again and again and again. And then
Yeah.
processing that all of that stuff in therapy was really, really helpful. But I've learned to define enough in a lot of different areas. And sometimes it's a constant, it's like a constant battling of it and trying to like redefine it and being like, oh, I'm putting too many expectations onto myself, but really learning to define enough in the various aspects of your life was so helpful with keeping hustle culture at bay and really getting back to a normal amount of hard work.
I love that. Okay, so that begs the question, what did you feel or what have you felt when you've gotten to your enough point? Like, can you give us an example of maybe an area or aspect of
Yeah.
and again, we know that everybody's going to feel different, and, process it differently and find their
Mhm.
enough point, as maybe more or less than other people. But what did that feel like for you?
Yeah, so again, this was like a trial and error type thing, and it 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 was the idea of going to therapy where, like, someone with the professional credentials could, like, look at my life
Yeah.
and be like, "That's too much," or, "Do you feel like that's too much?" Right? So she'd be like, "Okay," because it was specifically at work,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Where I was like, "Okay, I have to make a PowerPoint on this. I have to reread this before I get to school. I have to make these questions, blah, blah, blah," like, all these things, right? And so she was like, "But do you have to?" So it was like this getting used to this idea of, like, whenever I said, "I have to do XYZ," pausing, breathing, and being like, "Okay, like, is that true? Like, is that reasonable? Is that true? Who says?"
Mm.
Right? So,
Mhm.
like, for example, when it came to reading, the book To Kill a Mockingbird, right? Like, let's just say that. So, like, back in spring of 2023, I was teaching To Kill a Mockingbird for the first time to 10th graders. My beautiful, wonderful 10th graders who are now seniors. Oh my God, I can't even handle it. So so sorry, that was just like I'm
I
gonna miss them
love
so
them. Yeah,
much.
they need a
Um,
moment. They need a moment.
they do need a moment. But anyway, so I was teaching To Kill a Mockingbird for the first time. And I was like, okay, like I need to read the book before I go to school. Like, cause I've read it before, right? But I was like, okay, I need to read these 2 chapters tonight. I need to write the questions and then like I'll be ready to go for tomorrow. And it was like, you know, technically that would be good. I would be ultra prepared, right? But I'm tired. I don't have any energy.
Mhm.
My brain is braining, it's done. Whatever. Like I'm a human.
Yep.
My contract hours are 7:45 until 3:30.
Mhm.
It is 5:30 at night.
Yep.
I'm going to watch Big Bang Theory,
Mhm.
right? And so instead, I was like, well, the kids are going to be reading the chapter in class anyway. I play the audiobook.
Yeah.
I will follow along with them at my desk and monitor them, and I
Uh-huh.
will create the questions in real time,
Mm.
right? Because I am a seasoned professional. I am a professional question asking person, right? Like I am fantastic at answering or not answer. Well, I'm good at that too.
You
But
are
at
always.
creating questions, right? I'm going to just ride the natural momentum with the kids and just be in step with the kids
Yep.
and just do that, right? And, I could maybe read a little bit ahead or whatever, but I would create the questions in real time, right? Did
Mhm.
I do that every day? No, right? But there were some times where it's like that's what I would have to do, right? Where it was really paying attention to the have tos, to the shoulds, to the need tos and being like, is that a have to? Is that a should? Is that a actual need? And kind of going from there
Mhm.
a lot of other times too when it came to teaching the kids grammar because that was a huge stark pivot as well for me going from college to high school and I
Yeah.
was like oh my god I have to create all these powerpoints about grammar they need a lesson before we do the worksheet and then it was like but why
Mm.
the entire worksheet has a whole ass paragraph at the top that teaches them about the shit and it has examples. So you know what? No, I
Yeah.
don't have to overextend myself and take this information and make it into a PowerPoint when the kids have it right in front of them.
Yes.
Like, no, like, so it was just kind of like, it was just doing that. It was just being consciously, consistently aware of the times that I would work harder and not smarter. And it was like, that's stupid. Why would I do that? But to not judge yourself for it at the same time. But
Yeah.
that was how I was able to find that enough point. And you're at that enough point when you are not inconvenienced and overwhelmed and overextending yourself and, just exuding this extra energy when you don't have to.
Yeah. Oh God. That in a nutshell is like what I needed to hear, because I feel like I'm in that thick of it where I'm like, okay, well, what is enough? Like, how do I
It's
know?
so hard. It's
Yeah.
so freaking hard. That was the biggest, hardest thing. But learning to find that enough point,
Yep.
I mean, and it's uncomfortable. Again, it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable. You're going to feel like a failure. You're going to feel like you're not doing enough because you are so used to existing in overdrive. I mean, again, you have to sit in the shit. You have to force yourself to do less and really get on board with less is more.
Yep.
you know?
Yeah. Knowing full well that I feel like, and you correct me if I'm wrong, knowing full well that that doing less doesn't have to be forever.
No, it doesn't.
You will eventually get to a point where you're like, you know what? I've mellowed out, so to speak, or I've taken time that I need.
Mhm.
And now I do want to not go balls to the walls, but I do want to slowly, maybe add one thing back into my
Yes.
day or routine that feels good to me, and just not going, from
Mhm.
0 to 100 anymore, and instead slowly, incrementally, strategically, but also, what's
Yeah,
the word I'm looking for? Thoughtfully determining what am I going to put back into my schedule or start to
exactly.
do again, because it's truly something that brings life to me.
Exactly, exactly. And I really started to do more of my own writing. So I was actually working on Hustle Culture Detox. It's one of the many books that I'm working on right now because like I just believe in it so much. I'm just going to share my experiences and some research and some questions and like all this kind of stuff. So if you've been loving this conversation, you're going to love the book.
Oh, yeah.
But I was working on that a lot in January of 2024 with my friend CJ, and she and I had one call a week. It was Tuesdays, and we would hop on for like an hour, hour and a half, and we would write. And
Mhm,
sometimes I would write a ton. Sometimes I would write like barely like anything,
mhm,
but it was having that time on the calendar. It was 1 day a week,
mhm,
right? And then as the year kept going, um, I started to realize I was like, okay, like I am not actually producing a lot of writing here at night. So I switched and I was like, okay, I'm going to create pins, or do blogs or, work with some of the content I've already created because at 6 o'clock at night, after I've been teaching all day, my brain's not braining. I'm
mhm.
not feeling, creative in a creation kind of way, but I can be creative in other ways,
Yeah.
So I was like, I started to use it for that. And then I felt like you said, wanting to actually get some of that writing done. So I started the process when I had time before school, I started writing.
Mhm,
And, because I get to school absurdly early, I would write for like a half hour, 20 minutes, before kids started filtering in and I, switched modes, right? And it's that idea of like you pick a place and you start and
yep,
then you can like add more in. And then if you've added too much, you can take it back out and you can always change things up. You can always change your mind because you are in charge of your life. You are the architect of your life. So you can change
100%.
how it looks.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. You are the architect of your life. You so are. Oh, look at you just dropping all the good, good stuff.
But for real though, because I mean, I don't know if you connect to this, Kelly, or if, the person listening into this connects with this, but like I have spent a lot of my life being like, "Oh, I have to or I
Yeah,
should or I
you.
need to." And
Mhm.
it's like, who where is this coming from? It's coming from this like idealized, hustling version of like this is what it means to be a good teacher. This is what it means to be a good wife. I have to do this. I have to do that. And it's like oftentimes when we have those have to thoughts,
Mhm.
it's a clear signal to be like, "Mer, let's pause and let's actually like think about it. Do I actually have to?"
Yeah. That could also be another indicator towards like, is that moving towards my enough point? Like if I'm
Mhm.
constantly saying I have to do this,
Yeah,
maybe you are already at your enough point and we need to, get rid of some of those have tos. So that could be,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
love that. I
Mhm.
love that.
And yeah.
No, go, go.
No, I was just gonna say, but like, and I'm thinking about this because, like, again, we're both educators, and all my experience is in an educator like way, right? But
Yeah,
I still think even if you're in corporate, like that warrants a conversation with your boss. So it's kind of like if you're like listening and you're like frustrated right now because you're like, I know what's enough and I am overextended, but it's not coming from me and I can't control it.
yeah,
That needs a conversation then. You know, you need to have that tough conversation and be like, well, this is what this is what I'm capable of producing. Like I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling that way, like whatever, then you just need to like have that conversation to try to get more on par with the enough pointness of it. I don't know if that makes any sense,
That
but
does make so much sense, and you've shared this with me before too. It kind of lends itself to another, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, but what you had shared with me before, which was, if you have anxiety about
mhm,
X, Y, and Z things, loop people in.
yes.
Nobody is a mind reader, right?
Mhm,
So if you know that there's something that triggers you, let people know so that either A, they can
mhm,
avoid doing it, or B, they can support you in making that thing or circumstance or situation less daunting for you,
mhm.
you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely, right? And I just think that this world needs more honest and open communication, right?
Yeah,
Because 100% I was that person in grad school, my oh, what do they call it? It's not a supervisor, but the professor I was assigned to be a research assistant for, like, we're just kind of like sort of like a personal assistant kind of. And so, she'd be like, "Oh yeah, can you do this, this, and this for me?" And I would say yes. Even if I felt like I didn't have time, even if I felt like I was like, "I don't know how to friggin' do that," or "I don't wanna do that," I would
yeah,
never tell her that. I was like, "A good assistant
mm,
says yes.
yeah,
A good assistant doesn't say no." And so that was like a very, you know, toxic headspace to sort of be in, right? Because she was a great person, a great mentor, a great person to work for. And
yeah,
if I would have said, actually, I can't handle that, like she would have been fine, or she would have been like, only do this or that or whatever, right? But I think we get into that mindset of a good employee says yes, a good employee takes on more. I'm going to be valid, I'm going to be enough, I'm going to be worthy, I'm going to get promoted if I don't say no.
right.
And that is that again, whoop, right back onto the hustle culture train, right?
Yep,
Those are the little sneaky, shitty things
yep,
that take us from, wanting to be like, no, we're going to detox from hustle culture. And then these things are so deeply ingrained in us, we are back onto the train. It is so easy to get back on the train. But the beautiful thing about being on the hustle culture train is that you can hop right back off.
yeah.
You can hop right back off.
Well, and
And it's a process. It is definitely a process.
yeah, and to your point, I mean, I was just gonna say that too. Yeah, you can hop in on and off of that train,
Mhm.
but regardless, I think you have to go through it, right? I mean,
You
I
do.
don't know anyone who has avoided going through like the hustle culture
Yeah.
mentality. It's one of those things that as an adult, or even a young adult, you have to go through
Yeah.
it in order to realize that's not what you want, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, or that your health isn't gonna survive. Mental,
Yeah,
physical, spiritual, like,
yeah,
it's not gonna survive, right?
yeah,
I mean, and I think it does warrant to say there are certain seasons where you do, where hustle is needed,
sure,
right? Where, you gotta batten down the hatches and sort of grit your teeth. But I still think being aware that you're in a hustle season or in a busier season, there are still ways to take care of yourself. There's ways to set those boundaries, those reasonable expectations so that you don't emerge on the other end just, scorched, crispy shell,
right.
right? It's that lack of awareness that you're hustling and you think you're not, but you are, that lends itself to being scorched, right? But I think, even if you do have to hustle or your season is a little bit busier, there are still ways you can intervene in it to take care of yourself, redefining success in this season. What are the pillars that you have in place to, get yourself to take a break? Like, how are you taking care of yourself? Like, really just getting clear on the plan that you have in this season to take care of yourself, even though it is busy. Cause that happens,
Yep,
right? Like, that happens. I don't want to say that there's like, a perfect season,
right.
because it's always gonna what I don't wanna say threat, because that's not I don't like the word threat, but that call to hustle is always gonna, be there in some way or form, right? It's just learning how to mitigate it, to manage it, to have things in place to be able to weather it in a way that's not gonna drain you, but where you can thrive or you can survive in a good way.
Yeah, and I think maybe even to having some sort of a check-in, because like
Mhm.
it should be temporary, right? If you
Yeah.
are going through that season, it there should be an endpoint. So checking in
Mhm.
with yourself to be like, okay,
Yes.
are we moving towards the latter portion of this, season that we're in? Like where
Mhm.
are we? And
Yeah.
assessing and evaluating to see, okay,
Mhm.
let's try to start getting to the point where we can release X, Y, and Z things so
Mhm.
that we can get back to, more of a sense of, again, balance is not maybe more a sense of equilibrium, right? Having
Yeah.
a little bit
Mhm.
more of a give and take mentality.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so I mean, good Lord, this is just what an incredible conversation. Now I want us to talk about like how are you doing now? So like fill us in the now. Where is Megan at now? And like I feel like that also lends to maybe sharing like some mindset shifts that have helped you. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I love this. So okay, so we are recording this in the summer of
Yep.
2024,
Yes.
and I essentially have taken the whole summer off from writing, which is Kelly's dancing for me,
Yep.
which is the first time I've ever done that because in the past, summer has always been a go, go, go time for
Mhm.
podcasting and writing and creating, right? And I have genuinely done so much letting myself just be that
Mhm.
it's almost kind of scary. And there were definitely some moments where I was like, "Oh my god, I'm being too much. Like I'm in too much of my like feminine whatever, just like floating and just whatever." But it's been really good. Like it's been a great way for me to detox from this idea that the summer means go go go, create create. It's been really really great to do that and it's been uncomfortable, right? Like I've been on this journey since 2023 to learn to let myself be, right? January of 2023 and it's the summer of 2024. So like I'm still not perfect at this. It is a give and take. It is like a, ebb and flow type of situation, but I just really think I needed to let myself be here in the summer because we came off of a hard school year,
Mhm.
not only in terms of like some faculty overturn in the middle of the well, it wasn't really the middle, it was kind of the beginning, but that was something difficult, emotionally and logistically to navigate, right? I also then had to teach a class I've never taught before, and it was kind of like thrown in there and I had a star-studded roster of kids I would just die for. Like I love these kids. And learning how to teach that and dealing with the wonky rules of the class because the class was AP seminar and you're not allowed to teach the kids. And so figuring out how to be Yoda was like a whole other experience,
Yeah.
and just dealing with a bunch of stuff. Like I was dealing with some like health issues and like all the things, it's just been a hard year, hard long year. And then in Arkansas here we get snow, quote unquote snow. I love Arkansas. No shade to Arkansas. I freaking love living here. But no, we get snow. And so with the different things going on in the state, like it took away all of our breaks.
Mhm.
It took away all of our pretty much all of our breaks, minus spring break in the spring semester. And so we didn't have any extra breaks thrown in and the kids were burnt out and I was burnt out and it was like a whole big thing. I was like, so it was a really, really hard school year. And I think because of all those things, I needed more time to be this
Yeah.
summer. And so I didn't really write. I just sort of followed my heart. I kept podcasting, really just focusing on creating content that brings me joy. That's another thing too, is I've just allowed myself to be because I'm just rambling at this point. But my friend Emily Rudd, she has a great saying that I've really
Mhm.
taken on, you're a human being, not a human doing. And I remind myself of that constantly, right? I've also really tried to prioritize joy because sometimes as an Enneagram 1, I can be kind of a fun sucker. And I'm really trying to not do that because I truly believe that I am deep down like a very like nerdy, well, I mean the nerdy's not deep down. The nerdy's way hanging out there. But like I'm deep down I am this like playful fun person. I like to have fun.
Yeah.
I want people to do what they're supposed to do, but I also want like let's have
Enneagram one.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Exactly. I do think deep down there's this playful, fun-loving person.
Yep.
And I really try to prioritize joy,
Yes.
and that's, has resulted in playing a lot of Animal Crossing and buying some other video games
Yeah.
like, Endless Oceans or whatever it's called, where you get to explore the ocean. Because fun fact, when I was a kid, I wanted to be like my dream job, regardless of talent or ability, would be to be a marine biologist specializing in dolphins. Like I would be all over that, but I can't math, so it's fine. But like getting to play that game has been so much fun, and just sleeping in. Oh my God, this morning I woke up at like 8:30. I mean, the other day I woke up at 9, like just
Yep.
allowing myself to be. And I even brought that to therapy, where I told her last time, I was like, yeah, I've been sleeping and I feel kind of underachieving, right? So like it's
Oh, yeah.
real. The
Yep.
idea
Mhm.
that like, those thoughts and those feelings are going to swoop back in sometimes. So I don't want anybody listening in to be like, oh, Megan's perfect. Megan defines enough. Megan has all these things. No, like I'm not perfect, right? Like I even said to her, I was like, I feel like I'm kind of underachieving. I'm kind of like, what am I doing? And she's like, this is conditioning from the past.
Yeah.
She's like, it's the freaking summer. And she's like, when did you sleep until? I was like, 8:39. She's like, oh my God, girl, that's the perfect time to wake up. Shut up. Like, shut up, essentially. Like, shut your face. Like, stop talking. And it's like the body also needs to like build up a
Yeah.
lot of rest sometimes too, because I'm about to enter a busy season,
Mhm.
of all the things with school and stuff. So those are the things. I am so rambling right now, but just like embracing that mindset of human being, not a human doing,
Yeah.
and really prioritizing joy, um and just being present in those moments of joy has really helped out as well. So I would say it's still a process, right? It's still a process.
Yeah.
And I'm forever trying to find ways to be an ambitious woman that doesn't have to be defined by doing. Because I've started to believe that, because that's what I used to define being an ambitious woman as, right? And I talk about this a lot with a mutual friend of ours, Megan, from Canada. Shout out to Megan from
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah.
This idea of being ambitious and what does that actually mean? And I think in the past I've defined it as, calling your shot on these big things, being like loud and big and always working and just, big goals, all those things. And I'm like, it doesn't actually have to be. Like for me right now in this season, an ambitious woman means defining enough, having boundaries, taking care of yourself,
Oh,
managing your anxiety, and just enjoying this one fucking life we have,
yep.
because life is so short. And like my brother says, my youngest brother Keegan, he's like, yes, life is short, but if you live it up the way that you want to and the way you're supposed to, you only need one.
Oh,
And that's where I'm at.
yep.
It's this, I'm still uncovering this new version of me trying to live in that, like that energy and stuff. And so it's good. It's really good. And I just think it's just gonna keep getting better and better.
Oh my God, so many nuggets. I love that too of how you said an ambitious woman in this season is
Yeah.
me defining my enough point. Amen
Mhm.
to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets to be that way. You get to be a human being, like you said, and Emily
Mhm.
has said, not a
Yeah.
human doing.
Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah.
Holy
And
cow.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have so many books I wanna finish, but like, and I've had anxiety about that in the past, right? Where I'm like, "Oh my God, I came out with my book in, I think it was like 2021, like, oh my God, it's 2024. It's been so long between books." But then so much has changed between
Right.
then and now.
Oh,
Like the
yeah.
process of how I got that first book out into the world was so anxiety driven. It was so like I'm by publishing this book, I will be enough. And now I'm creating from a point of I am enough. I am worthy. I have things to say. And the creation process with Hustle Culture Detox, and then my other book I'm working on, which is Unleashed. Oh, I can't even tell you the creation behind it has been so joyful, so
Yeah.
natural, so flowing, and that is how I want to create.
I love that. I've told you, I can't wait until those books come out.
I
Obviously,
know.
I'm not pushing in any way, shape, or form for them to be
Mhm.
out ASAP, but like when those come out, they will be out at the time that they're meant to come out.
Yes.
I am so excited for them. So you gotta loop everybody in on, yes, the books you're working on. Obviously, you're a podcaster too, so you've got
Mhm.
to go over and check out The Power Within Her. That is an incredible podcast. Friggin' love it. Tell everybody what's like next steps for you. What's going on for you moving forward?
Just like with business or just life or what?
Life, just life in general. Yeah, it can be like the books that you're working
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
with us, but just yeah, life in general.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I love this question. This is so fun. So, my husband and I are it's just like my husband and I and our dog Banner, who is just my sassy little boxer mix, big booty man. I love him
Booty
so much.
man.
Roger and I really want to start our adoption journey.
Mm,
We really want to adopt kids. Long story short, ever since I was 18, I have known that I really don't want to be pregnant. Like, I do not want to like birth a baby in any way, shape, or form. We really want to adopt. And so we are going to take actual steps toward doing that because I'm a big-hearted person. I have so much love to give, and I am so proud of the woman I am now. And I've told you this, like, Kelly, I've texted you about this before, but recently I've been like, God, I feel behind. Like, I'm 34, like, and we're just talking about starting the adoption process. I might not have a baby in my arms till I'm 38, like, and I've decided to reclaim this idea of being behind because, and I don't believe I'm actually behind, but like, sure, hell yeah, I'm behind. And I'm going to teach so many women who need to hear this how glorious it is to be behind. Because if I think about myself at 32, that woman was not ready to have a baby in her arms. The
yeah.
woman I am now wants a baby in her arms, is ready to have the baby in her arms because she knows what is enough. She knows her worth. She knows she's enough. And I so badly like we're leaning toward just telling the adoption people that we want to adopt a little girl, and Roger has already picked out her name. I'm in love with the name. It's just so great, and I cannot wait to hold that little baby girl in my arms and to just teach her all the things that I didn't have when I was growing up. Not that my parents were horrible. My parents were fantastic, but just a couple other little pieces that I personally really needed when I was growing up, and just to teach her how to be enough and just to shine her light and all these things. And we have so much love to give, and I think it's, there are so many kids who need good parents, and I think I can be a good parent. And I'm just really excited to start that journey and to keep writing. And Roger and I want to do more hiking and just doing this authentic, genuine living and doing life our way. So that's what's next.
Like, my eyes are like welling up, and I as you shared that because you like if you don't know Megan, like I would want Megan to be my mom. Like that the woman she is. Like she is just incredible. So
Oh, thank
I'm
you.
so excited for these next steps. I know you've clued me in and looped me in on some of these next steps, and I hope that you know that I'm one of, if not the underneath me and Roger and Banner. I'm like the next
Yes.
one in line of like your biggest cheerleader. I just absolutely
Oh, thank you.
want to see you succeed always and want to see you happy, and you have no idea. This podcast alone, like I know I'm going to come back to over and over again. This is something
Mhm.
I told you that I feel like is not shared enough, is not, spoken about enough in
Mhm.
public. And I feel like people just try to skirt around,
Mhm.
like having this uncomfortable conversation. And it doesn't have to be uncomfortable because
Mhm.
the fact of the matter is, like you said, we have this one life. So let's not waste it, right?
Yeah.
Let's make the most of it, and let's not burn ourselves into this crispy shell that serves no one, including
Mhm.
ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
just thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you for showing up as you
Oh.
guys are. You're just the best. I love
Oh,
you.
thank you so much. This has been such a fun conversation. I just love you. I just adore you, and just thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I love you.
I love you.